Ironically, Prabhupada's disappearance day was just a few days ago. This chapter 10 is entitled Krishna's Great Soldier. Prabhupada travelled by train from Bombay to Mathura. Brahmananda carried him in his arms from the train to a waiting car, and within 15 to 25 minutes, Prabhupada was back in Vrindavan. The devotees at the Krishna Balaram Mandir were upset to see that Prabhupada's condition had deteriorated so much in the 1 month he had been away. His room was as he had left it, except for the addition of a large double bed. He lay down and they closed the curtains and dimmed the lights. For about 5 minutes he lay still with his eyes closed. Now you're home, Srila Prabhupada said to him, O Krishna. Still, Srila Prabhupada lay quietly, not moving. Then he slowly brought his hands to his chest, clasped them together and said, Thank you. He seemed relieved. Now you are in the care of Krishna Balaram, said to him, O Krishna. Srila Prabhupada smiled and nodded slightly. Yes, he said, Krishna Tadriya Pada Panka Panjarantam, indicating King Kulshakar's prayer to Lord Krishna. My dear Krishna, please help me die immediately, so that the swan of my mind may be encircled by the stem of your lotus feet. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, how it will be possible for me to think of you? Although Srila Prabhupada was in a precarious state, he remained completely fixed in thought of Krishna in one way or another. Krishna's name, his form, his pastimes, or his devotional service. Prabhupada suggested going to see Krishna Balaram at 9:30, just as he'd done before, but the servants advised that he rest today and begin that program tomorrow. Whatever you desire, I will do, Prabhupada said. Tamal Krishna asked Prabhupada if he wanted the Kaviraj to come. As you said, Prabhupada, for better or worse, some husband must be there. Srila Prabhupada nodded. Now manage everything, he said, and let me think of Krishna Balaram. A little before 4 in the afternoon, well, this is a very interesting point, that Prabhupada is practically, literally on his deathbed before he says, okay, let me think of Krishna Balaram. And Prabhupada did say, work now, samadhi later. And his own example was there. Of course, Prabhupada spent so much time translating these books. That was his ecstasy, he said. A little before 4 in the morning, while devotees were reading aloud from Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada asked if the temple bell had rung for the hour. However, since the temple opening in 75, he had insisted that the bell at the front gate be rung every hour to signify the hour, and once every half hour. First, the temple president had been unable to get a watchman who would remain awake through the night and ring the bells regularly. Just imagine that. You're paying someone to be a watchman, you're paying them to sleep. But Srila Prabhupada had insisted so strongly that the temple management had finally established the bell ringing. For Srila Prabhupada, it was more than just a good standard, it was a symbol of the entire temple management's effectiveness. If they couldn't even arrange that bell be rung regularly, then how could they manage everything else? Now Srila Prabhupada was saying he thought he heard the bell ring at the wrong time. Tamal Krishna explained it might have been a different bell, and the devotees continued reading Srimad Bhagavatam. But Srila Prabhupada again had asked about the bell in the temple room. As Harishori rose to go out and check, the bell began loudly ringing 1, 2, 3, 4, properly sounding the hour. That is my concern, said Prabhupada, that such a huge establishment is properly managed. If not properly managed, then everything will be finished. So Prabhupada ki, yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 21. Ya tasya te pada saroruharhanam. Yatasya te pada saroruharhanam. Nikamayet sakila kama lampata. Nikamayet Sakila Kamalampata Tad Eva Rasipsitam Ipsito Archito Tad Eva Rasipsitam Ipsitorchito Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate Yatasyate Padasororuharhanam Yatasyate Padasororuharhanam Nikamayet Sakila Kamalampata Nikamayet Sakila Kamalampata Tadevara Sipsitam Ipsitorchito Tadevara Rasipsitam Ipsitorchito. Sorry, I'll try that again. Thank you. Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate Yad Bhagna Rachna Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate Yatasyate Padasaroruharhanam Nikamayet Sakila Kamalampata Tadevara Sipsitam Ipsitorchito Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate. Please chant. Yatasyate Padasaroruharhanam
Yatasyate pada saroruharhanam Nikamayet sakila kamalampata Devara sipsitam ipsitorchito Yabhagna yachna bhagavan pratapyate
Yatasyate Padasoruharhanam Nikevaya Sakila Kamalampata Tadeva Rasitaksitam Ipsito Nachito Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate
Mataji.
Yatasyate Padasaroruharhanam Nikamayet Sakila Kamalampata Tadevara Sipsitam Ipsitorchito Yad Bhagna Yachna Bhagavan Pratapyate
Ya, a woman who, Tasya, of him, Te, of you, Padasaroruha, of the lotus feet, Arhanam, the worship, Nikamayet, fully desires, Sa, such a woman, Akila Kamalampata, although maintaining all kinds of material desire, Tat, that, Eva, only, Rasi, your word, Ipsitam, some other desired benediction, Ipsita, being looked to for, Archita, worshipped, Yat, from which, Bhagnayachna, one who desires objects other than your lotus feet, and who thus becomes broken. Bhagavan, O my Lord, Pratapyate, is pained. Translation: My dear Lord, you automatically fulfill all the desires of a woman who worships your lotus feet in pure love. However, if a woman worships your lotus feet for a particular purpose, you also quickly fulfill her desires, but in the end she becomes broken-hearted and laments. Therefore, one need not worship your lotus feet for some material benefit. Please repeat, my dear Lord. You automatically fulfill all the desires of a woman who worships your lotus feet in pure love. However, if a woman worships your lotus feet for a particular purpose, you also quickly fulfill her desires. But in the end, she becomes broken-hearted and laments. Therefore, one need not worship your lotus feet for some material benefit. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Rupa Goswami describes pure devotional service as Anyabilasita Sunyam Gyanakamadjanavitam. One should not worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead to fulfill some material desire for success in fruitive activities or mental speculation. To serve the lotus feet of the Lord means to serve him exactly as he desires. The neophyte devotee is therefore ordered to worship the Lord strictly according to the regulative principles given by the spiritual master and the Shastras. By executing devotional service in that way, he gradually becomes attached to Krishna, and when his original dormant love for the Lord becomes manifest, he spontaneously serves the Lord without any motive. This condition is the perfect stage of one's relationship with the Lord. The Lord then looks after the comfort and security of his devotee without being asked. Krishna promises in Bhagavad Gita 9.22, Ananyaschinta yanto mam yejana paripashate teshunicca biyuktanam yogakshema vahamyaham. The Supreme Lord personally takes care of anyone who is completely engaged in his devotional service. Whatever he has, the Lord protects, and whatever he needs, the Lord supplies. Therefore, why should one bother the Lord for something material? Such prayers are unnecessary. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that even if a devotee wishes the Lord to fulfill a particular desire, the devotee should not be considered a sakama bhakta, a devotee with some motive. Bhagavad Gita 7.16, Krishna says, Chaturvidha bhajanti mam jana sukritano jana arto jigyasur atarti gyani cha bharatarshava. Who best among the Bharats, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. The Arta and the Artarti, who approach the Supreme Person of Godhead for relief from misery or for some money, are not Sakama Bhaktas, although they appear to be. Being neophyte devotees, they are simply ignorant. Later in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Udara Sarva Evaite, they are all magnanimous, Udara. Although in the beginning a devotee may harbour some desire, in due course of time it will vanish. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam enjoins Akama Sarva Kamova Moksha Kama Udaradi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajita Purusham Param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he is full of all material desires, is free from material desire, or has a desire for liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Holy Personality of Godhead, Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Even if one wants something material, he should pray to no one but the Lord to fulfill his desire. If one approaches a demigod for the fulfillment of a desire, he is to be considered Nashta Buddhi, bereft of all good sense. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Kamaistaya Hrita Gyanaha Prabhajante Nya Devata Tam Tam Niyamam Ashtaya Pratrityani yatasvaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Lakshmi Devi advises all devotees who approach the Lord with material desires that according to her practical experience, the Lord is Kamadev, and thus there is no need to ask him for anything material. She says that everyone should simply serve the Lord without any motive. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is sitting in everyone's heart, he knows everyone's thoughts, and in due course of time, he will fulfill all desires. Therefore, let us completely depend on the service of the Lord without bothering him with our material requests. Om Gyantamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vikam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Girim Yakripatamam Bande Shigrim Dinitaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, you automatically fulfill all the desires of a woman who worships your lotus feet in pure love. However, if a woman worships your lotus feet for a particular purpose, you also quickly fulfill her desires, but in the end she becomes broken-hearted and laments. Therefore, one need not worship your lotus feet for some material benefit. So in the Ishopanishad, is there Ishopanishad in the bookcase there? Do you have it? Is there an Ishopanishad in that bookcase? No, okay. So there's one verse in the Ishopanishad where Krishna is referred to as being the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. And this is testament to the Supreme Lord's uniqueness, that he can perfectly reciprocate with unlimited living entities, whereas we can hardly even reciprocate with one properly. We can't even keep ourselves happy most of the time, what to speak of someone else. So Krishna can fulfill desires beyond our wildest dreams, but usually our dreams are very limited. We dream something in the material world. Even simply desiring peace of mind, that's a personal thing. I remember one Prabhupada disciple, he was telling me about some personalists and yogis. He says, they simply want peace of mind. So he was discounting that peace of mind, this is just simply like some kind of temporary relief, because there's always going to be something which is bringing some disturbance to the mind. We have the threefold miseries, right? We have miseries coming from our own body and mind. You're trying to be happy, and then you realise you've got COVID, and then you get worried, and then you get sick, or maybe you don't, but you're still worried, or maybe you get a cold, or you get something goes on. We're always throughout our lifetime, there's something going wrong with the body. Nobody gets out unscathed. And then we have, this is coming from natural phenomena, like sometimes when it's dry for a long time, then we like the rain. But then when it's raining for a long time, we want to see the end of it. We want some dry weather. Even if we find some situation that's temporary, it won't stay nice. And then we have miseries coming from other living entities. Or even yourself, if you think, okay, well, this Krishna consciousness, because it sounds like a really nice thing, let me take it on board and practice it. It sounds like the the best thing I can do with my life. Still, even if you become a devotee, which is giving the promise of eternal life full of bliss and knowledge, and still there's no guarantee that from that point on that you decide you're going to be a devotee that is going to be trouble-free. Because we have a body, material body, but in the material world. Janma, Mrityu, Jara and Vyadi. So we have birth, death, old age and disease. And so these are some things to look forward to in the material world. As soon as we're born, it's only a matter of time. If If we're 20 years old, then Prabhupada says we're 20 years dead. So it's maybe not a very bright prospect to consider, but the reality of it is that everyone has to face that. And better we face it now with full consciousness, just like Prabhupada was mentioning in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, where they took him to Vrindavan, and he was there in Vrindavan. Then he quoted that verse from King Kulshakar, now that I'm conscious and I can think of you, they'll let me die straight away. So, of course, we don't take it into our own hands. That's forbidden. It's not that we should get the bead bag out and then take an overdose or kill ourselves in some way. That's forbidden. That just makes matters worse. It's not an easy way out. Krishna's not that cheap. A lifetime of surrender and devotion to Krishna. And this surrender, it's not something which is against the happiness or the well-being of the living entity, but it's actually the opposite. This is the medicine. We're surrendering actually all the time anyway. We're surrendering to our mind. The mind says this and we say, okay, let's do this. And then we look back and think, what did I do that for? Or we had some reasoning why we did it. We're using intelligence, but then we find that our reasoning was somewhat limited or faulty. Or it may be good. The intention may be good, but out of lack of knowledge, then perhaps we're only doing some temporary good. So therefore it behooves us to consider what is the best benefit I can have in this human form of life. What is the best benefit I can do for others? Actually, if someone's becoming advanced, Prabhupada says that material compassion is the beginning of devotion. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, then Arjuna, he was being materially compassionate. And although it was somewhat limited and faulty, then it was the beginning of the process of surrender to the devotional process. So this devotional service is not something which we perform now out of hope that later on we'll find out at the time of death whether we tipped the scale better in the good side than the bad side. It's not like that. It's Jivan Mukta Sauchate, that even in this lifetime we can experience the connection with Krishna. We can experience the satisfaction of serving Krishna. And even in our apparent difficulties, we can still be satisfied. See, like a devotee's happiness it's like sometimes the ocean. So the ocean is very deep, and sometimes on the surface there appears to be some waves, there appears to be some disturbance. But you just go a little bit under the surface and you see it's deep, it's calm. So sometimes there may be some little superficial disturbance that happens there because we're in the material world, just like the ocean is generally quite calm, but a little disturbance from other elements creates some waves. And Krishna, he advises us that the waves of material life are going to come, the waves of sukha dukkha, happiness and distress, they come. And if we become too concerned with these, then just as a wave goes up, the wave of elation, happiness, then when that same wave comes back down, then distress affects us equally. So everyone considers how to learn to tolerate, and we think tolerate means tolerating pain, tolerating negative situations, but also we have to tolerate the material opulent situations. Like you may be good at something and someone praises you, and then the challenge is how can we take that praise without becoming puffed up, without becoming proud, because proud is not a good quality for advancing spiritual life. And the easy thing is to understand that Krishna is giving us ability. Whatever abilities we have, Krishna is giving that, and we use it in Krishna's service. So a devotee doesn't take the credit for himself. When a devotee, after some time practicing devotional service, reading Shastra, adjusting our lives so that our life becomes much more sane and stable, then we don't take credit for ourselves. We pass on the credit to those who have actually helped us. And in this way also we can be compassionate to those who are less fortunate than ourselves. So referring to, there's very very nice points here where the recommendation is that one should not look for material satisfaction or to fulfill material desires, because if we become a devotee of Krishna, they will be satisfied anyway. And they'll be satisfied in such a way that we can give them up. If we simply want to satisfy the material desire itself, like say you want some wealth or fame or something like that, then if you just want that on its own, then you may just be left with that. But if we surrender to Krishna, he knows what's in our heart. He'll make arrangements for us so that we can do these things and at the same time give them up. So the typical story in this regard is Dhruva Maharaj, small boy, 5 years old. When he was the son of the king, but his mother was one of the maidservants. And in those days, the king had multiple wives. So the queen, she scolded Dhruva Maharaj for getting up on his father's lap and told him, "Oh, you're just the son of a maidservant, away with you." So he was feeling quite hurt, as you would imagine. He's very pleased to see his father, and then he was chased away. Having spent time in the court of the king, he witnessed many sages who would have discourses with his father, the king, and they talked about going to Vishnu and going to find Vishnu in the forest, and it describes how they would do their meditation, etc. So he left home, just like sometimes, don't know if anybody here ever got upset with their parents when they were small and decided they were leaving home. And then maybe they get to the end of the street and they turn back and realise that, it's a big bad world out there, it's too dangerous to leave home. But Dhruva Maharaj was such a determined person. He went to the forest 5 years old and he was performing great austerities up to the point where he received the audience of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu personally came to see him because of his great austerities. And when he seen Lord Vishnu, he was stunned, he couldn't speak. Lord Vishnu touched his head with a conch, and then he started offering these wonderful prayers, which you can read in Srimad Bhagavatam. And essentially he said that previously I was looking for some pieces of broken glass. Sometimes a child may be attracted to some glass and they hold it up to the light and they see the light coming through it, some pieces of broken coloured glass or something. He said, I was looking for pieces of broken glass, but actually I found you, who is the priceless gem. So he was able to give up what he was looking for, which was a kingdom great and his father's great and his grandfather. And he was able to give that up in his heart. But yet still Krishna gave him that desire anyway. Because he'd given up the desire, then it was no longer a problem to him. Sometimes, because Krishna he loves us so much, and he wants us to go back to the spiritual world more than we want to go. That's why he comes. Periodically he'll come, or he'll send his devotees to remind us that we have a place where we belong. We don't belong in this world. We try to make a place where we can belong in this world, but it's such a struggle for existence, and it's not worth it, because in the end we have to let it go anyway. It's not ours. We have a false sense of proprietorship that we think, I'll turn my time into pay. There's one devotee, Mangalananda, he wrote many nice songs and said, if you think that the honey is there in your money, that's something you ought to know. You can turn your time into, what's it said? You can work hard all day, turn your time into pay, but you leave it behind when you go. So for some period of time, we have a false conception that this is mine. Just like, I'm using this chair because I have a problem with my back. And if I come in and see someone else sitting in it, my mind thinks, that's my chair. But it's not my chair. It wasn't my chair before. I borrowed it out of the ladies' ashram. And so I'm thinking that it's mine somehow or another. We're thinking everything's ours, but the material resources were here before we came along, and then we just put our greedy eyes on it and think, that's mine, that's yours. So, of course, the philosophy that everything is everybody's and we just use everything is also not our philosophy. It's not like, well, if that's nobody's computer, I'll just use that then. It doesn't matter. It's such an inconvenience. Maybe she's trying to do some work and I say, oh, it's nobody's computer, I'll have it. And then what, there'll be a fight, right? But the Upanishad also explains that one has their allotted quota according to our karma. So if people understand karma and reincarnation, this will bring a lot of peace in society. Because we may desire something, but if we don't have the karma to get it, doesn't matter how many books you read about positive thinking, about how to just attract wealth. It just won't come if it's not your karma. I remember one person who was in debt, and he came to me and said, I've been reading this book, I know how to overcome a debt problem. I said, what's that? He says, I'll just think that money's going to come and it'll come. I says, I don't think that's a very valid financial solution. You just think it will come and it will come. So a while later I says, how's that working out for you? No change. If it's going to come, it will come. And this is what also Prahlad Maharaj was saying. According to our past activities in previous life, we did some good stuff, some bad stuff. So we will enjoy and suffer the amount we're due. That's already predetermined. What's not predetermined is how we react when these predetermined situations come along. So we still have free will. So this is the resolution between free will and predestined. The predestination is there of the opulence we will receive. It may be in the form of human form of life, good looks, good education, good birth, these kind of things. Vidya, kuli, so education, birth, etc. And a certain amount of good karma is going to come our way according to what we put in the bank. It's like if you put $100 in the bank and then you go to try to draw out 200, you won't get 200, you've not got it there. You can only get what you've put in. So this is how karma works. And also if we create some debt, we have to pay that debt back. But when we come to Krishna consciousness, then all is good and bad. Because both good and bad are binding, because they say, for example, that miraculously, somehow or another, you never do any bad karma, all you do is do good karma. You still have to come back again to the material world to get a material body to enjoy that good karma. And then what you're going to do with it, you may do something which is exploiting to someone else, and then you have to come back and be exploited because you exploited someone else. So Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that this action and reaction is so intricate, don't even try to understand it. We don't try to fathom out like something just happened to me there. I wonder if that was what I did 37 minutes ago. We don't try to figure it out. We just know that it's a reaction. just understand the principle, not the detail. But here, this Kama Sarva Kamova Moksha Kama Dharadi Tivrina back to Yogena Yajita Purishamparam. The person who is of broader intelligence, whether he's full of material desire, free from material desire, or has a desire for liberation, should by all means worship the Supreme Whole Personality of Godhead. So even if we have some material desire which we find difficult to give up, then at least go to Krishna, because Krishna is the one who is fulfilling everyone's desire. Sometimes people go to demigods, or they depend on someone else to try to be kind to them to fulfill their material desire. But Krishna is within our heart, and he knows exactly what we want, and he also knows what we need. Sometimes Krishna will fulfill your desire in such a way that you feel like, this is just so stupid. I've got something, we're on the threshold of eternity, and I just want some little glistening thing of the material world, some little distraction. And sometimes Krishna gives it, and we think, I'll do this now because it's been given to me, but I just feel so embarrassed. And the material world does embarrass us. Just like sometimes we get so intoxicated that we do something we regret, we get embarrassed, and next day we have to make some apologies or something like that. Anyone ever done that in life? Some of you are more pious. But sometimes we do things which we regret, And so when we're approaching the Lord for our desires to be fulfilled, but the Lord has actually got so much more to offer, it's not a problem for Krishna to fulfill the desires of his devotees. Just like in the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma describes the spiritual world as having desire trees. I was just hearing yesterday, Prabhupada was saying that in the spiritual world, these kalpa vrikshas, desire trees, they're different from trees in the material world. In the material world, the tree can only supply the type of fruit which grows on it. And you go to a pear tree, you won't be able to get an apple or a plum. You go to a plum tree, you won't get a banana, certainly not in Scotland. But you'll get the fruit that it produces. But the kalpa vriksha, it produces any variety of fruit at any amount. It's not like it's, okay, we've got 15 bananas on this tree and then that's it until the next month or something. And he said, even puris and halava, this is the nature of the spiritual world, it's not limited, kalpa vriksha. So he says, even devotees don't have any desire. So you think, well, why do they have kalpa vriksha trees in the spiritual world? Because the devotees are free from material desire. He says they don't have any desire to fulfill, but sometimes they have desire to offer something to Krishna. And then that they say, oh, maybe I'd like to offer something like a mango to Krishna. So the kalpa vriksha tree gives a mango they can offer to Krishna. So when we align our desires to serve Krishna, we're watering the root of the tree. This analogy shows you that when we water the root of the whole tree is nourished, the whole tree is satisfied. But if we don't have that faith and we think, oh, well, I can't see the root, so I'm only going to water what I can see. I'm going to water leaves, and we'll water the trunk and the branches, and some of it might go down to the roots, but gradually the tree will start to become malnourished. It will shrivel up and die if you don't water it properly. It might look good initially because the leaves are dry and you put some water on it and they look a bit wet, but it's not going to soak it in. So you water the root. So similarly, Krishna is the root. He is the cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam. And if we retrain our mind to put in our faith in by serving Krishna, then our desires will be satisfied, and in such a way that we realize we don't need them. There's something better anyway. We get a param drisva nivartate, a higher taste. So it's not possible to give up and everything auspicious will come. So this Hare Krishna mantra is known as the Maha Mantra, the great mantra. So there are many different mantras one can chant. The Maha Mantra is considered the most powerful because it contains all the auspiciousness or benedictions which you'll find in any other mantra. And this mantra is the hub of the spiritual world. So we're getting the highest in Kali Yuga. This particular age we're living in is called Kali Yuga, according to the Vedic system. There are 4 cosmic ages, just like we get 4 seasons. So in the present age we're living in, it's called Kali Yuga, or winter age. So often in winter, then things are dark, cold, things don't grow. And in the darkness, people may get up to all sorts of skullduggery or whatever. It can be a fearful time in some places. So Kali Yuga can be quite a fearful time where people are acting out the darkness of ignorance, where they're being misled to doing things which are really bad karma, vikarma forbidden, or ugra karma, horrible, unbeneficial works meant for the destruction of the world. But because people don't have higher knowledge, they're just going along with things. And because we're so attached to sense gratification, then we simply just perpetuate the system which fulfills our senses. As long as we get our cigarettes and our booze or our drugs or whatever we're into, or TV or whatever, then we'll play along with the system. So this is keeping people asleep. But when they realize we don't need these things, because we were discussing with someone the other day that people are looking for leaders to lead the world. But actually, because present-day leaders are mainly operating according to democracy, then they're looking for votes. And therefore, they're not going to do something which makes them unpopular. And so just like this COP26, which was on recently in Glasgow, then there are many solutions to ecological problems coming up. But one senior statesman mentioned that although the governments may know that, then nobody really wants to do it because whoever does it is going to become very unpopular because people are going to have to perform austerities. They're going to have to do without. They're going to have to change some of their ways of life. So therefore, they want to get voted back in the next time, so they're hoping that someone else is going to, take that risk. So rather than the leaders leading, then the people, I'm not trying to kind of, instill some revolution, but the revolution is a change of heart, not that we go on the streets and just throw bricks. That's the kind of thing which doesn't really get taken too seriously. You just find yourself in jail or blacklisted or something like that. But the kind of revolution which is a change of heart, where we personally change ourselves first, and then we spread this knowledge. And then when the leaders who want to be leaders, that's fine, that's their desire also, they see that people don't want this any longer, they want this, then they will start to make policies which are according to the demand of the people. So in this way, we shouldn't think that we're insignificant. We are significant, and we are all part of the solution or part of the problem. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is giving the solution for the problems of this age of Kali. And that begins with Harinam eva kevalam kalo nascheva. So kalo nascheva means that in this age of Kali, Kalo, the most certain means of self-realization is the chanting of the Maha Mantra. It's not, it doesn't require a lot to do, but we do have to do it attentively. And even sometimes devotees, they may appear to have some material desire, but what is their desire for? It's simply so that they can propagate Krishna consciousness. Just like we have this prayer, the blessings of Lakshmi Devi, and sometimes we might think, well, this is like approaching the Lord for some material thing. The Lord knows what we want, so why we bothering the Lord for that? But when the Lakshmi comes, we use it in Krishna's service. So it's not that we use it for ourselves, that we just simply enjoy. If we wanted to enjoy, we'd probably sail up and move to Hawaii or something like that. We wouldn't necessarily be stuck in wet, windy Lesmahigo. But we take our being here as being Lord's arrangement. He's brought us here for some reason, so let's try to align ourselves with Krishna's plan. And that way we become satisfied, we become significant also. So as long as our desires are aligned with Krishna's mission, then our material desires are not actually cause of entanglement. But if we desire something for ourselves separate from Krishna, then that is karma bandhana. That creates some karmic reaction. And the goal is to get free from this cycle of samsara, repeated birth and death. And this has been perpetuated by this good karma, bad karma thing. So if we become free from that by akarma, and activities which no longer bind us and actually even liberate us, then we become free from the cycle of birth and death, and then we can return to the place which is where we belong. Okay, we'll just stop there and we'll get any questions or comments.
When that scenario that you described, where you kind of enlightened, like, take it upon themselves to purify their existence, and gradually hope that others will take it up. Should we actually think that that is what, I mean, Krishna's designed the ages, the 4 ages in a particular way, it seems for a particular purpose. And for that to happen in Kali Yuga would seem like the least likely time for it to happen. Because the mode of ignorance is so strong. But a lot of devotees are presenting that possibility now. Like, for example, uplift yourself, change the world. Can we see how we can work even on a small scale? Is there anywhere where it's actually working, even just on a small scale, or where it has worked on a small scale, that perhaps we could see that it would be possible on a big scale?
Yeah, if you're looking, you see where it's happened in yourself. What were you doing before and what you're doing now? You know, and you've been doing this for so many years, so it worked for you. The change of heart. It's just like when devotees start chanting Hare Krishna, they don't have to think of extraneously doing so many things. Then so many other good things start to become part of their nature anyway. And we also have to bear in mind that simply making the material world a nice place is not our goal. You know, as a byproduct, it can be a nice place, but if you're in the prison house and you're thinking, we want more rights in the prison, we want to have a nice cell, I want a cell with a view, I want bars which are not black, I want white ones that are a bit nicer, a bit more sattvic, then, you know, it doesn't improve our freedom. So the material world can be viewed like that we're stuck here. And the real thing is to get out of the prison cell. While we're here, then, you know, if everybody is of the mood of let's work together and behave ourselves and get out of the world, then there'll be less trouble within the prison. People stop fighting amongst each other if they all think, okay, let's behave ourselves and make a good impression and we all get out. So it's just like when they build a city, they don't want criminals. It's not like they build a city, they build a jail as well, because they know that some people will not obey the law. So therefore, that is a law of karma, that some people may not obey the law, so they have to come back and receive their rewards and punishments. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that if we follow his directions, we can live within this material world happily and not be entangled, and at the end get out of this world. So this is our recommendation. And also an answer to your other part of your question is that because everybody's got a bit of good and bad in them, and some have got more good and are more concerned with just themselves. Some people are not so selfish. Then as Kali Yuga progresses, some things get worse. It's just like what was acceptable in society some years ago is not acceptable now. Now, some of those things have improved, but also some things which were not acceptable within society due to moral consideration that are now accepted. Or it's like sometimes we give that example, like when some of our parents or grandparents were kids, the worst thing they do is maybe steal an apple from a neighbour's tree, and then they were terrified they might get caught. But what do we get up to now? And then what's the next generation going to get up to? So sometimes it comes to the point where people realise this world is going down. Just when you think it can't get any crazier, it gets more crazy. And then it creates a polarisation. People think, well, this is what it means, I don't want to be part of it. If going along this direction is the direction everyone's going in, then I don't want to be with that number. So it creates a polarisation, and as Kali Yuga gets worse and becomes more degraded and more crazy, then more people who have got piousness or good in their heart will become polarised. And it will take some effort, because then they know that I can't keep up this certain aspect of my life. I need to let that go because that's connected with the way things are going downhill. And the best thing we can do is chant Hare Krishna, not just for ourselves, take it out to the streets, which is what we'll be doing on Saturday. And take these transcendental literatures and distribute them so people can get this knowledge and understand that they have something more valuable than just this temporary, limited life. We have a life which is eternal. And that's the important thing, is to feed that. Just like if you've got a bird in the cage, but you just polish the cage, and the bird's it's going, feed me, feed me. Just like in our heart, we're hankering for some connection there, some meaningful connection. But if we just cater to the body and the mind and intellectual pursuits, we're not feeding the soul. So we're not feeding the bird of the cage. But when you feed the cage, then you see the reason for having the cage in the first place. Feed the bird. Is that okay? Can we stop there? All right. It's going to give in the key. The Prabhupada key. Untitled Srimad Bhagavatam key. Tagore Premanande. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda key.